Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the buffed Picardie. In update 14.7, the massive round of balance changes included the Picardi, one of the worst battleships in the entire game, in my opinion. I really did not like this ship. And let's see what they changed. 1.5 Sigma is what this ship used to have. And now it has 1.7 Sigma, so 0.2 Sigma buff. And that is the tendency for the shells to go towards the center of your dispersion ellipse. It is important to dispersion, but also important is just that general dispersion ellipse. And that has not changed. It is still just regular battleship dispersion, 1.7 Sigma now. And that can mean it's a little trolly from time to time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I struggled a lot to play this ship today. It was very, very difficult. Every once in a while, it would surprise me with a salvo, but unfortunately for Picardi, it is not just an up-tiered Leon with a reload booster. This is a ship that has a downgrade in gun caliber. We have 305s here, not the 340mm guns we get on Leon. And that means our alpha damage is quite a bit lower on both the AP and the HE. So we're relying on our better accuracy and slightly improved reload over Leon to have similar firepower to a tier 7 that I don't even think has the best firepower. Leon is a bit of a meme ship, in my opinion. It's funny to run the triple Leon div and coordinate fire and focus one target with 3 of those ships at once. I don't think it's particularly great, though, by itself. It is funny to play in that regard. So Picardie's got a lot of work to do to be a higher tier yet and a lower caliber. The AP has 7,450 alpha damage. Tier 8 battleship. There are tier 10 battlecruisers, tier 9 battlecruisers, tier 8 battlecruisers that have that level of alpha damage or more. So it's a bit of a struggle here. The pen also matches with that caliber as well as the speed, so you're not penning through a lot of battleships. It is quite nice into cruisers, allowing us to mostly get those full pens. As always, the blind fire seems to always do a little better accuracy than the locked on for some reason. And as well, this HE could be worth using, 51mm pen, but only 3,500 alpha damage. We're getting into like heavy cruiser territory here, like things like Zhao. It is pretty difficult to recommend you spam a lot of HE out of this ship, alongside a 15% fire chance. But it's 16 guns at tier 8. That, I think, is why we see these lower alpha damages. If we had standard alpha damage on this ship with the same reload, or even a 30-second reload, maybe we could argue it gets a little bit busted. Consider, for a second, that this is the same dispersion that main gets at tier 10. Battleship dispersion table alongside 1.7 Sigma. That's what main gets. Leon gets battleship dispersion with 1.5 Sigma. We see Colombo with battleship dispersion and 1.6 Sigma. Although that, of course, gets the legendary upgrade, it gets SAP, a lot of things going in Colombo's favor these days, let's be honest. As soon as we get a large target like Kearsarge, this is where we get to see the alpha damage not be as much of a downside since we hit so many shells. Look at that. 17k. That feels a lot like a tier 8 battleship. A good tier 8 battleship even into a tier 9 there. Broadside Roma, 5 kilometers. Surely this is going to be excellent. That's one Citadel only. Yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. Every Citadel you get feels a little bit weak. I'm not gonna lie, it felt pretty bad anytime I got a single Citadel salvo. I need 2 or 3 to make it feel like a real tier 8 battleship, unfortunately. So this is a nice buff to this ship, but it doesn't make up for the massive amount of weaknesses. The shells, as mentioned, feel pretty weak on the AP, so that makes me want to play closer. Well, the problem is Picardi still has some terrible firing angles. That can work at lower tiers, but as we get into higher tier, 42-degree firing angles forward and back feel very bad, especially with this armor scheme. 180mm upper belt, 32mm deck armor. That upper belt is great for shattering some HE, but any AP is going to get armed on that. Alongside having a very low HP pool for your tier, 56k HP. That, by the way, includes the HP flag. So base HP is 53,000, unfortunately. Leading to things like torpedoes doing a lot of damage to you, or it feels like they do a lot of damage to you, to your health bar there. That was a pretty massive white bar that we took. Yeah, our torp protection is also quite poor. So a ship like this one does not want to push in. Fortunately, we do have some of the best in class concealment. 11.7 detect on a tier 8 battleship is extremely good. Now, with plane spotting, it can be a little bit hard to make use of that at times, but you do want to be playing this ship a little bit outside. You don't want to be taking sustained engagements. You're forced to play very broadside to use all of your guns, and you need to be using this DPM because you get a reload booster. So it's not like you're angling in and then only swinging out to fire your guns like you might on something like a Vermont. Long reloads allow you to do that. When you need to be using the DPM, because that's really what all Picardi has, it doesn't have great alpha damage. Its DPM is what keeps it in the fight and keeps it competitive. You're forced to stay broadside more, and then you risk a lot more incoming damage here. They also say that they buffed the shell flight times. Trajectories will be significantly faster. I gotta say, I didn't really notice it. And when I looked, I lined up a clip with 15.2 kilometers of range in an old video on Picardi, and it looked like we got a 0.3 second shell flight time buff at 15.2 kilometers. A weird number to pick, I understand, but that's just what happened to get to on the video that I checked. So not a huge buff there either. At least we have a reload booster. That is really cool. That allowed me to, I don't know about trick this in comp, but maybe caused him to be a little bit overconfident to come around the corner there thinking I was reloading after shooting the DD. Reload boosters are very nice. If we find a broadside cruiser who maybe doesn't take the most damage on our first salvo, it's okay because we have that reload booster. If they angle, it's not as much of a help. That's generally why I prefer consistent single salvo into broadsides out of battleships in particular. We need one salvo to count. DPM matters a lot less on a battleship because people, well, if they get surprised by a battleship salvo, it's only going to happen once. Let's be honest. Most people are going to understand that they need to angle. Here against this Nachi, it is working. Still not able to finish him off, though, even getting a Citadel there. It's because that alpha damage is such a massive problem for this ship. So, of course, I had to try it in some more brawls. I know I said that it's not the best in these situations due to the firing angles as well as that torp protection, but that was a lot of damage into that Lepanto out of just 3 of our guns. I gotta mention that the turret traverse here is excellent. Smaller caliber, we would expect that, but sometimes when they give you this many guns, they don't always give you good turret traverse. Here, though, we get 36 seconds base. It is very, very nice to have. Alongside the 2 central turrets being 360. Also very nice to have. For a brawl, for anyone popping up on your side, it's really, really solid in that kind of situation. And the DPM does start to matter more in these brawls. You're not gonna find at close range that people are as easily able to angle to every one of your salvos, especially if there's multiple teammates around. I think that's how we got such a good shot on that Lepanto. Thinking about turning guns again to Lepanto, but he's wise to us and is going to angle. So we'll focus on the Iwami instead. A lot of bounces, but we're trying for Citadels at these ranges, especially because I don't trust this alpha damage. I'm really relying on the Citadel damage to come through for us. We're probably going to go down here. We're in quite the crossfire, but I'm going to hold my shot here as long as I can. I'm going to wait essentially until Iwami shoots me. I want to get as best an angle as I can on his Citadel, trying to get around into that cheek part of the Citadel. Not that it's a Yamato hull, but every ship has a slightly weaker bow section of their Citadel. And we get 2 sits alongside 9 bounces. Every degree counts when you're angling in situations like that. Our back 2 turrets did not have a chance of penning at all. That's why they all bounced. The front 2 turrets, though, that's where we got the pen damage and some of those Citadels. Brawls are fun, but this ship just doesn't quite cut it for brawls, unfortunately, as much as I might try to force it. So what do we got to do instead? We got to play it mid-range, we got to spam our high explosive, and then when someone gives us a broadside, maybe then we'll swap over to the armor piercing. Unfortunately, I do think this is where Picardi is going to perform its best. I don't like it very much when battleships are relegated to just spamming high explosive, but that's what this one needs to do thanks to its caliber and relative lack of survivability to force pushes, especially in matches like this one where there's carriers, there's subs. Sub-torps are absolutely devastating to you. Carrier spotting negates your advantage of your concealment to surprise people, so you just got to be patient, spam the high explosive, hope for some fires. You can see these salvos are kind of pathetic given the alpha damage on this high explosive. It feels like we're playing a light cruiser or a heavy cruiser a lot of the time, doesn't it? With these HE salvos. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 damage. It's nice for something like a heavy cruiser or a light cruiser as far as HE damage goes, but you know, when you're waiting 27 seconds for battleship salvo, it doesn't feel so good. Atago goes broadside, gives us an opportunity to swap to that AP. Gun feeder going to be great here. Unfortunately, we don't get the Citadel on that first salvo, but the second one comes through. If you're a Picardie enjoyer, I think you will notice the consistency be a little bit better. Since I'm not much of a Picardie enjoyer, I found this ship to be quite frustrating, as mentioned. The fire chance here being 15%, by the way, means it's a terrible fire starter. Compared to every other tier 8 battleship, the fires per minute here is very much on the low side. We are the 7th worst. We light 5.3 fires per minute. And I'm surprised I'm doing this. We just took a look at Analt through ship request. I think Analt's better than this, guys. That ship has 8.1 fires per minute. It's got 27% fire chance. Its alpha damage on its HE, German HE, notoriously poor alpha damage, 4K. It's just a better version of this. It seems like. I may be overstepping there. I'm not sure, but Analt felt a lot better than this thing. It makes sense, though. Picardi was always considered weak, in my opinion, so giving it a 0.2 Sigma buff, while nice, isn't going to help with the vast majority of the problems that this ship has. Like its firing angles, like its gun caliber, like its alpha damage for that gun caliber. Feels like they overly nerfed down this gun caliber to give it a reload booster, and I guess 27-second reload. Would have preferred they stuck with the Leon 340s, and given us a longer reload, like 30 seconds or whatever, maybe tone down the reload booster. It is a little bit better reload booster than we see on other tier 8 battleships. The Champagne, for example, has a 15-second reload booster. This one lasts for 20 seconds. Nice to have, but doesn't make up for the fact that these guns are a little bit anemic. 360 turrets, though, very useful against this Lahardi, and I've swapped to HE. You'll notice I use a lot of AP into destroyers. Here, just for you guys, HE. Oh, that's 7 hits for 3,800 damage? I know I'm cherry picking examples, but this is one of the reasons why I shoot so much armor piercing into destroyers. Not only is this a French DD, so there's French saturation, which is counting against high explosive because it doesn't do so well with saturation. We're also hitting a lot of modules. So sure, we're going to crack his engine, we're going to maybe take out a gun or a torp tube or two, but that eats that shell. It's not going to do alpha damage then. And in situations like this, we want to help our Gepard stay alive. We need that alpha damage. It's so important to get that massive chunk of damage out of a battleship in those destroyer engagements. You can easily be the difference maker in those engagements. Your friendly ship, DD, might be the best torp boat, but one of the worst gunboats against one of the best gunboats in the game, let's say, on the enemy team, taking that engagement. A single battleship salvo can be enough of a difference that that torp boat can win that gunfight just because the alpha damage that you can send through. And when the HE hits modules, it can be useful, but a lot of the time we just want that damage. So in that case, 7 hits, and I was actually running heavy AP here, greeting a little bit since I found the shell damage so anemic, trying to build around that. So that's like 8k alpha damage. We would have got over 5,000 alpha damage out of the overpens. Those 7 overpens we would have got instead of those 7 HE full pens would have netted us another 2,000 damage into that DD. Kind of sad when you'd think swapping to the HE would be the correct play. It often doesn't work out that way. So even for a Picardi, I found myself shooting mostly armor piercing because the HE got nerfed down so hard. So if you're looking for a tier 8 premium, maybe you're looking for a battleship that's like a Bourgogne at lower tier, right? French battleship, a lot of guns, 16 here. Bourgogne only has 12, but reload booster, I don't think Picardi fits that bill. In fact, I do think that you'd be better off going for Analt. That one even being a coal ship, you can earn completely for free just by playing the game. Picardi's just in a rough spot. I'm glad they looked at it. As always, Wargaming, very happy to see balance changes here. Looking at older ships, trying to bring them up to par. I think Picardi's just in such a rough spot that you tried, but it's just not enough for this thing, at least in my opinion. And if I had to guess, that's probably not a surprise to a lot of you that this ship is not amazing, even after this buff. I would compare it to a battle cruiser. I'm sorry, battle cruiser enjoyers. I'm sorry, but To me, this feels a bit like a battle cruiser. It does not have the firepower of a battleship. It does not have the survivability of the battleship. But what it does have in line with a battleship is inconsistency on those main guns. Perhaps not quite battlecruiser playstyle, I know, but it does feel like that a little bit to me. I'm surprised how poor this armor actually turned out being. This was more of a liability, I found. It just armed a lot of full pens, and thanks to us relying a lot on firing our guns on cooldown, I didn't find myself able to angle very well. When kiting, we of course start to get a lot of these shot traps here, thanks to the design of this hull. Smaller superstructure, yes, but we only have 32 millimeters of armor. That may sound good, but a lot can full pen that. A lot of HE gets through 32 millimeters of armor these days. Not a lot of HP to start with means few good hits, and suddenly we're on critical HP, and we gotta really retreat far away to play a little bit safer. Suddenly, these shells perform so much worse at those longer ranges. It really is a very difficult ship to play well, in my opinion. Or interestingly, maybe I should use the word have fun. It's a difficult ship to have fun in for me. My playstyle, I do prefer to play a lot closer. I personally really dislike having to play the HE role. So maybe you would go demo expert. It does have an impact here considering our fire chance is so low. This is what I ended up running towards the end. I started out with a more sensible build, don't you worry. I wasn't running super heavy AP and Furious and then going to complain about my ship not being the most survivable, okay? I understand that we should be taking these upgrades if we want to be a little bit tankier. But even while taking those upgrades, I found myself dying a lot very quickly. So then if those weren't working, my logic was, well, let me try and mitigate one of my complaints. If it's not survivability, if I can't mitigate that with my build, let me try and mitigate the damage problem. And it still felt a little bit anemic, to be honest with you. But that's what I ended up running with towards the end of my play session. Here were the upgrades as well. It's a ship of all time, I guess. And now we've covered it. That was the update in 14.7. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about the Picardi balance change. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.